Thank you for the introduction. Also to set expectations again, it's not about, I'm not talking about marketing tools, CRM or something like this. I'm really talking just about what's happening when you have a growth with your company or with your organization, what can happen, and just give some learnings or experience from my side. So it's very individual view on that case. Also, if you have any questions, then just interrupt me and let's maybe have a conversation immediately. First about myself, without picture. My name is Philipp Lanik, as I said. I'm head of studio here in Berlin for King. Who knows King? Okay, who knows Candy Crush? Okay, I also was, before I was head of studio here in King, I was executive producer for Candy Crush, so I also have seen the whole growth of Candy Crush from the beginning to now. And yeah, that's me. Now I'm here. Thank you. And as I said, I'm VP head of studio here in Berlin. I'm also a member of the Candy Crush franchise leadership team, the global leadership team. I have more than 15 years experience in mobile online gaming, in digital production teams, etc., etc. So I would consider myself as in the core, in the heart, something like a producer. And I worked and lived in Austria, Sweden, and in Germany now. So if you can hear it from my dialect, I'm not a German. I'm from Austria, from Vienna. If that is an interesting info, I don't know. Okay, good. Obviously, there's a lot of. It's still not. No, it's here. Yeah, quickly, I have to do this because there's the company stuff. We are a big corporation, so we always have to have our company slides a little bit to introduce ourselves. As I said, we have developed a lot of games, around 200 small games and a lot of big games. We have around, in the last reported numbers, we had around 260 million active users. And the company, meanwhile, is part of Activision Blizzard. You maybe got it, I think it was in 2016, as Activision Blizzard acquired King. And we have only the King entity has around a couple of studios in Europe. It's London, Barcelona, Stockholm, Malmö, and Berlin and Bucharest. So that's our current setup. And we at King, we are around 2,000 employees. And as I said, we have a couple of big franchises like Candy Crush, Pet Rescue, Farm Heroes, and Bubble Witch. My experience is on Candy Crush, so I'm working on Candy Crush as a franchise for the last 6 years. And Candy Crush is also by far our biggest franchise, what we have. I'm happy you know it. I think what's just interesting here, it's not so interesting to the rest, but I think what's interesting is that Candy Crush is still growing. What most people don't know, it's an app, it's a game that is like, it was launched 2012, and we are still top crossing in the US. We are still growing year over year, quarter over quarter, as a franchise. And I think that is for a live title, for a live game, quite a really good performance, what we have done on our side. So in case you're interested, big thank you to our marketers and paid marketers. They are doing a really great job. The game teams are also doing a good job. But yeah, I think we also have a lot to talk about this, but not today. Looking at Berlin, as I said, we have a development studio in Berlin. That is what the most people don't know, that we are also developing in Berlin. And in Berlin, we are 100% focused on the Candy Crush franchise. So we are pure Candy Crush studio. We have around 100 team members. Out of those 100 team members, we have around 30 different nationalities, so it's by far a very international studio. It's the most international studio what we have at King. It's not that the biggest group of people are not German, so it's really a very equal base of nationalities. And we have around 30% females, so King Berlin is also a role model within the King organization as a very diverse and inclusive studio. If you're coming from who's coming from marketing? Okay, a lot. 30% females is not a lot for people who are working in marketing usually. For game development studio, it's a lot, believe me. So that's really a really good benchmark. Yeah, and as I said, in the studio we are working on purely on the Candy Crush franchise, on different titles and different projects. As a studio focus area, we are delivering something what we call innovation within our live titles. So we are really focusing on bringing new game experience to our biggest games like Candy Crush Saga. Any questions around this so far? No? Okay. So then let's talk about, after the introduction, let's talk about a little bit about change. And as I said, it's not about how to market the game, how to grow a game. I think all of us who are here at this summit wants to grow the app, wants to grow the business with different tools, etc., etc. But with growth, there comes also a lot of impact to the organization, because in the best case, you have something like hypergrowth. That's even the best thing to do. Then it's even faster when you have to impact or when you have to change your organization. And for me, growth is, and I went through a lot of growth stages, it's a change process. It's a change management process in a certain way. And I was thinking back a little bit as I prepared for this, what kind of changes I have led teams through in my career so far. And I would say I was confronted, probably I was never really working for very stable teams, companies, or always very fast growing teams. So from scaling teams up, growth up to really doubling teams in a very short time, to scaling teams down, that means with the redundancies, to closing, starting teams, reorganization, restructure, company acquisition, company merger, strategy change, leadership change. I think it's a very wide scale what I have the experience to lead teams through, or other leaders. Who of you knows or has experienced those kind of changes as well? No, not a lot of people. Really? Okay, it's painful. Just in case you're getting there, it's really, really painful. People don't like it, and it's really painful. But for leaders, or for people who are working with teams, it's like you can take it as something that is really painful, or you can take it, and that is, after getting the experience and learning it, you can take it as a learning experience. And all of that, what is really painful, where you would like to cry, is something that makes it better as a leader. So take it from a positive side as well. Nevertheless, I was also thinking about what I have experienced in the last 12 months. So in the last 12 months, I have scaled up teams, a company organization, I have doubled it. I have stopped the doubling up and reduced it again. I have closed project teams with several people, up to 20 or 30 people, and I have started completely new teams. I have restructured a completely organization. I have changed the complete strategy, or I was part of a complete strategy change. With that, I have also changed the complete vision, and I have experienced a leadership change. So all of that is kind of what I would call a stress test when you're doing this in 12 months. And beside that, we also have delivered games and features. That is something we should not forget. And I was thinking a lot about this in the last 12 months. So I would say it's nothing of that is new to me. But in the last 12 months, what was new to me was the intensity, what you can go through with teams. And it's not about that I experienced this, I have experienced this, or done this, or led up to 100 people through those kind of situations. And it's kind of, as I said, organizational stress test. But to be very honest, you should not take it as a stress test or a change process. It's something very specific. If you have something like this, I would call it crisis. So I think you should rather apply on those kind of situations crisis management than a regular change management. But that's a different topic. A crisis is usually an impact of several changes in a very short time from outside.
Since you said we can ask questions, did you start from the top down, or did you start with a vision change, a strategy change, and then everything unfolded?
I did not prioritize it, and I did not rank it in the right order. And I did not start, in reality, the change with the right thing to do, the vision change. Because, as I said, that have been several external events, partly, and partly internally driven, that have been applied to an organization. Of course, in the best way, you always start with the vision, the change where you want to go, and then you apply all the needed steps. No, that was not the case. Good, because then it might have been easier also for me. After this year, probably I'm not as old as I'm looking now currently, but it's okay, it's a different topic. So, and that is a little bit what I'm talking about, if I have enough time. And some of my learnings, there's this, very quickly, there's this a change curve that is it's a very popular model, more or less. Kubler-Ross, you can apply it to organizational changes, leading people. You can apply it also when you break up with your partner or when you lose your apartment or your job. It's stages people are going through more or less, from shock, denial, anger, blame, depression, acceptance, and problem solving. it's really good to think about it. I always take it a little bit like this from my perspective. When I'm going through a change, it's like I'm standing here at the top of a cliff, and when I'm looking to the sea, I see this little island I would like to reach because there should be a vision or something that is super reachable. I would like to go there, a little paradise. So I have to jump from this cliff. That's already the first step I have to do. Sometimes it's really high, sometimes not so high, and if it's really high, then you really crash to the bottom of the rocky beach, and that really hurts. So you can't blame yourself. It really sucks what you have done. Then you start swimming because you have to reach this island. You're really getting confused. It's cold, there are waves, and you're getting a little bit distracted. And then at a certain point, you reach a little island, and you're really happy. You're high. So that is how I visualize it. And then usually, sometimes my leaders explain. So now you have to jump, get used to it. Go to the journey, you will reach the island. I think what's important for me is what I would like to give you if you are leading teams. Who is leading teams? Who is leading other leaders? That's a very important topic because you're always going through this change as well. Either you drive it by yourself or you have to drive it for others, for a company. You have to go through this, and one of the mistakes a lot of leaders are doing, understand that your teams are behind you. So I've seen this very often from leaders. When they're reaching this point, they're getting completely high, and now we're doing the next change. It's like, you can't do this because your team is here. They're still totally in anger. When you come with the next positive message to them, they're like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you crazy? We just changed everything. We just jumped off the cliff. So believe me, you can't do another change, you can't trigger another change when you are not sure that everyone is at the same stage. And everyone means every team, every individual has a different level. That means when you went through the change and you're here, everything is high and you want to go to the next step, then your leader is probably here, a little bit depressed, confused, and the team is here, they didn't even jump. So just another typical example when you trigger a big change, so you're preparing this change from your preparation, you maybe think 6 months, you're preparing half a year more. Then you trigger this change, and it's quite old for you. Your mindset is completely somewhere else. Your mindset is here. You trigger this change, everything you worked for half a year. And what's the first question you usually get from a team? Why the fuck are you rushing in this change? It's like, why I'm rushing? I'm thinking about this for 6 months now. It's like, because you're here, the team is here. They did not even jump. So think about the timing is a very important topic if you change organizations. Some other typical things what you get confronted with when you change organizations. Confusion, rejection, fear, frustration, chaos. Anyone as an employee or leader has done a change and had this kind of feeling in the group? Yeah? Okay. That's very typical. So it's like, don't feel, it's like everyone has those kind of feelings. As I said, for me, it's like either corporate change or breaking up with a partner or something completely different. You have very similar stages. Where is it coming from? It's like, need to check the time. Confusion. Why are people or where is the team confused? Yes, usually there's no vision in place. So, or the vision is not properly communicated. Make sure that you know your vision before you trigger change. Make sure that on the way you know your vision, you stick to it. And make sure you're communicating it to the teams. So without a vision, then the team is getting very confused. And that is the first thing what you need to think about yourself. When there's this kind of confusion, what have I done wrong in communicating or preparing the right vision? That is really understandable for the teams. Rejection. Why should I do this? It's a communication issue. Have you really explained why you're doing this change? Or have you just said we are doing this change? People want to know why and explain it. I think that's a good thing to do. Everyone wants to know the background. So think about the right communications. Listen to the people. Ask them. Observe body language with your teams, what's going on. And really, the why is one of the most important things in a change process. What you need to make sure that the why is really properly explained and repeat it. at the beginning of the cliff, only to communicate the why is one thing that the people jump, but the why and the vision needs to be explained over the whole journey. So think about repetition. I think repetition during this kind of change process is one of the most important things for myself. Even it's annoying for you because you have the feeling you constantly tell the same story, it's very different for the audience, very different for the participants. So please repeat what you want to do. Fear. That's very... Probably about capabilities. I can't do this. Why? I don't have the right capabilities. I don't have the right skills for this. Why? I can't go into a new engine. I can't work with Unity. I can't work with this. And we don't, as a team, we have no capabilities for this. It's yes, of course, you might don't have it. That's exactly something what you need to solve as a leader as well. Listen to the people, listen to their fear, listen and understand it. And make sure for the change you have the right talent in place. It does not make sense to change something when you don't have the right people in place, from leadership to also skills and expertise, but also help to train people, support training and provide training and support. Frustration. People are getting frustrated. I'm constantly getting frustrated. Not the right tools. It's like, that's not working. I think that is everyone had tools is something like, how often are you getting frustrated with Outlook or other tools? It's like, yeah, it's not different in any other change process. Make sure the right tools are in place. If you ask teams to go into a different process and they are not the right tools, like typical example, for example, if it comes to HR processes or something like this, tools needs to be in place. Otherwise, it's pretty hard for people to adjust or for teams to adjust. Chaos. At the end, it's about planning. So. Make sure you have a right action plan, make sure you get the right input, you adjust it also based on the input, because your team always has if you work with your team, you get very valuable input, and that is something you should also integrate in your action plan. And make sure that you have a plan that is also properly communicated. And at the end, if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a proper communication, if the capabilities and the tools are not right, and the action plan is not given, then there is a very, very high probability that your people are getting confused, are rejecting what you want to do, they're scared, frustrated, and chaos is happening. And I would say then it's a really high probability that your change is not working. Yeah? So make sure you get a good feeling around this and make sure that at least some of those points are addressed. It's nothing that's not new, but I think I have experienced this quite often, and I made a lot of those mistakes as well in different stages, because when you're depending on how the change is triggered, you're not always prepared, and then you can immediately identify those kind of things.
I think it's also to look from a leadership perspective. Also, if you are the one experiencing this, go to your leader and ask them, right?
Yes, that's a really good input. Yeah. That is a really good input, because very often, I mean, when you're working for a big corporation, like a middle manager, what I would consider myself, although from a hierarchical system I'm quite high, but I think if someone in California from Activision is triggering a change, or my boss maybe, then I'm also the receiver of those kind of things. And I think for a leader, it's exactly the point. You need to lead your people and your team. You need to lead other leaders, but on the other side, you're receiving the same topics. And think about yourself when you as a leader, you're getting frustrated or you have a fear of doing the next step. It's exactly about the same things. You can use it also for yourself to reflect on what's missing. And you should always give this feedback also to your leader, or make sure that it's working out, because very often you in your role, you're also the one who should bring up the solutions. So, and that's exactly the point. If you have the feeling, okay, none of us knows where to go, we are all very confused, and probably it's time to work together with your leaders also on the right vision, or to communicate it. It's a really, really good input. So, and just to close this a little bit, as we are talking about growth in particular, and some final words. As I said, for me, growth, especially if it's about hyper-growth and something that is really getting pushed, it's a change process at the end. But I think what I've realized, there are some topics what you really can take when growth is getting painful and when you realize something is not working right and you have probably missed out on some topics. You have too little time for everything. It's a very classic symptom. Constantly short-term crisis, or what we also call firefighting. You're running from this corner to this corner. Teams are lacking directions. Building organizational silos. Good luck with this on the long term. lack of talent, leadership quality. When you really double up your company, you can't hire only experts, talents, and the right people, especially in leadership. You will take these costs, and that will be pretty hard and painful. And communication overhead in meetings. So is some of you in a growing company currently? Yeah, do you have something like this? Yes. So then you realize usually something is not really working out. I mean, that's very natural, and that's also happening because growth is something that is really very, very demanding in that context. You just need to recognize it and realize it. Would also a recommendation I would give: stay cool, because everything is fixable at the end. And for you as a leader, if you're a leader, also some recommendations from my side. Some pieces of wisdoms. Learn to say no. That's the first thing. Take also a look at your own work-life balance. Being a leader does not mean you need to work the most hours in your company. Start delegating stuff, because if you're growing and you're not starting to delegate stuff, it will be a mess. You're becoming the bottleneck. That's even the worst thing that can happen. And don't forget the structure around you. I've seen so many leaders and so many people who are building the best structure, the best teams, the best organizational structure. The only thing what they are not changing or not building up is the structure directly around them to support themselves. Because with growing the company, the demand around you is also growing, and that is something you should also take care about. And finally, don't forget, we are all excited about growth, except your development teams. They definitely, I have seen not a lot of development teams who are really thrilled about doubling up the size of the team or triple it or even more, because they have to carry a lot of weight. So that's from my side. Even time for a question if there is something. Thank you. Any questions, input, comment?
So thinking back to the graph that you showed earlier with the cliff, how transparent is that for the employees in the organisation as well? Are they conscious of this as the overall process?
I explain it to them, yes. I use those charts and to explain it to them because it's something we are all going through together in different stages. And I think it's very relevant for people to understand them. I think what we should change is that you educate everyone in the team to have the same understanding to when we are going through a similar process. And for me, it's important that they know it. And but I think it's probably everyone should treat this differently. But as a leader, you should know what's happening. And I think it's always good to be transparent and explain those kind of things. It's not a secret. It's something that's a known model, and probably some of them know it anyway.
Is there a strategy to align your vision with your employees?
I think vision alignment is a really good topic. It's probably a separate track, I could imagine. It's a very I think for me the tricky thing is how to align a vision in a fast-changing company, because when you set up a vision, you set up a structure to run for an organizational unit to run for a vision, then you can be sure that on the other corner of the company there's already a change of the vision somehow. Or let's say it like this, a vision should not change that often, but the strategy is getting changed more often. So I think the vision should be aligned after a while, and that is about communication, is about inclusion, because a vision should be created as a team, as a big team as well. So the vision should hold, that should not be changed that often. Strategy around it is a different topic, and very often it's getting changed too often, in my opinion. But I think I really can't give you feedback directly, because that's a super complex topic, in my opinion, that is constantly, especially with fast-growing companies, constantly going wrong. Not very satisfying as a feedback, I know. Any other question? No, then I wish you good luck for your next change. Make sure it's not painful for yourself and not for your team, but don't worry about it. It can be painful, and that's very normal. So stay cool, stay calm, and just think about what you can change during the process. And I think the most important thing is the vision and the strategy around it. And take it as an experience. That's one thing, to get the pain out of it. Just tell yourself it's everything what you experience now. It doesn't matter how painful it is. If you're not dying, it's helpful for your further career. Thank you.